had a one-night stand with a top-tier alpha and got pregnant. I was actually pretty thrilled about it, ready to raise the baby on my own. Then he showed up as my new boss. My world came crashing down. Lately, I've been feeling drained at work and getting these random waves of nausea. I didn't think much of it, just figured I was overworked. My coworker, Fiona, teased me, if I didn't know you were single, I'd swear you were pregnant with those symptoms. My breath hitched, and my hands froze over the keyboard. I thought back to that wild night a month ago. No way. Could it really happen after just one time? I took the day off and went to the hospital. Walking out of the hospital with the pregnancy test results in my hand, I was a mess of emotions. I touched my stomach. A tiny life was actually growing in here. My baby. Any other person in this situation would probably terminate the pregnancy. But the doctor's words kept echoing in my head. Your reproductive system isn't fully developed. For you to conceive at all is a miracle. I asked him, confused, then how did I get pregnant on the first try? The doctor gave me a meaningful look. Your alpha must be very powerful. I don't remember the mortified expression I must have had as I walked out of his office. The alpha was definitely powerful, but he wasn't mine. A month had passed, and I'd almost forgotten his face. His mint-scented pheromones, though, had lingered on me for a long time. It only took me an hour to decide I was keeping the baby. Maybe it was because I was so lonely. My parents had both remarried, leaving me feeling like a kid nobody wanted. This little life inside me felt like the closest connection I had to the world. I'd saved up a lot of money from part-time jobs in college and my full-time job after graduation. I could afford to raise a child. Once I made the decision, a wave of relief washed over me. My phone rang. It was Fiona. Felix, you're not taking tomorrow off, right? I heard we're getting a new big shot boss from corporate. He starts tomorrow. I replied, nope, I'll be there. Good, Fiona said, relieved. As a department head, you really shouldn't be absent on the new president's first day. After the serious talk, she switched to gossip mode. I hear the new president is a top-tier alpha, tall, handsome, the whole package. I was about to be a dad. I couldn't care less about how hot my new boss was. The next day, the new president walked into the conference room under everyone's curious, probing gazes. The room erupted in applause. Only I remained frozen in place. Even though the alpha's face had grown fuzzy in my mind, I hadn't completely forgotten it. The new president gave a faint smile. Hello, everyone. My name is Aiden Hayes. Hearing that familiar voice, I was absolutely certain. Aiden Hayes was my one-night stand, and the father of the baby in my belly. I wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. The entire meeting was torture. As soon as it was over, I was about to make a run for it. But then I heard Aiden say, could all department heads please stay for a few minutes? I had no choice but to sit back down, keeping my head low the entire time. The lighting in the hotel room was so dim. He probably doesn't remember my face, right? I woke up before him the next morning and bolted. He must have forgotten me. Mr. Cole, why wasn't this project pushed forward? The manager next to me nudged my arm. Felix, he's talking to you. I snapped my head up. Aiden Hayes was studying me. His expression was a mix of surprise and curiosity. I cleared my throat and started answering his question. By the time I walked out of the conference room, my legs felt like jelly. Should I quit? No. I just got a promotion and a raise. I couldn't give it all up for someone I'd only met once. Besides, I had a baby to support. As long as I keep my mouth shut, he'll never know. I hadn't been back at my desk for long when Aiden's assistant called me into his office. Aiden leaned back in his chair, his gaze sharp as he stared at me. Felix, have we met before? I shook my head, denying it. No, Mr. Hayes. You must have me mistaken for someone else. Aiden's lips curved with amusement. Is that so? Orange-scented. I remember it quite clearly. I instinctively touched the glands on my neck. Orange is the scent of my pheromones. Aiden continued. The bite mark you left on my shoulder hasn't completely faded yet. You have some sharp teeth. You took my first time and then just ghosted me? My face flushed hot. If he wasn't my boss, I would have slapped a hand over his mouth. He's an alpha who slept with an omega. Why was he acting like I was the one who'd taken advantage of him? I was the one who was pregnant, and I hadn't said a word. I summoned my courage. Mr. Hayes, please watch your words. That night is in the past. It was an impulse fueled by alcohol. Let's just pretend it never happened. Aiden raised an eyebrow, looking displeased. Back at my desk, everyone was buzzing about Aiden in the group chat. So handsome. The office finally has some eye candy. I heard he's the company heir. Got into a fight with his parents and was sent down to our branch to learn the ropes. An S-class alpha. The presence he has is so intense. Does Mr. Hayes' pheromones smell like mint? OMG, so hot. Does he have an omega? S-class alpha? After scrolling through the chat, I typed Aiden Hayes' name into a search engine. A master's degree from a prestigious overseas university, countless awards. He'd even skipped 2 grades. A certified genius. I glanced down at my stomach. Well, the genes are certainly strong. I might be average, but my kid won't be. Aiden and I had one crazy night. It was my birthday. My colleagues and friends had all sent me wishes and gifts. After a celebratory dinner, I opened my chat with my parents. It was empty. They'd forgotten my birthday just like they seemed to have forgotten they had a son. Passing by a bar, I went inside. The memories after that are a chaotic blur. The constant rocking motion, mint-scented pheromones, powerful embrace, the neon lights outside the window, the first light of dawn. When I woke up the next morning, I was still in the alpha's arms. My body was covered in hickeys. It was the most impulsive, rebellious thing I'd ever done in my life. I scrambled to grab my clothes, get dressed, and escape. Even though I was pregnant, I had absolutely no intention of tracking down the alpha from that night. I thought we'd never cross paths again. Turns out it's a small world. He became my boss. After a brief panic, I started to reassure myself. If Aiden was just here to learn the ropes, he probably wouldn't stay for long. I relaxed. When Aiden treated the company to dinner, I went without any worries. At the table, Kevin from the next department laid on the compliments thick before raising his glass to Aiden. Seeing this, the other managers quickly followed suit. I poured myself a glass of tea and walked over to Aiden. Mr. Hayes, I can't drink for health reasons, so I'll toast you with tea instead. Aiden raised his glass and clinked it against mine. Kevin started in with a snide tone, Mr. Cole, why the high and mighty act? I've seen you drink plenty of times. Is this how you show disrespect to our new president? I instinctively glanced at Aiden, who was watching me with an unreadable, almost smile. Right? He probably didn't believe me either. After all, I'd only slept with him because I'd been drinking that night. Just as I was about to say something, Aiden spoke slowly. Kevin, you're getting awfully worked up. Anyone would think Felix was toasting you. Kevin's face went pale, and he started apologizing. I breathed a sigh of relief and returned to my seat. I had just sat down when a wave of nausea hit me. I rushed to the bathroom. I felt much better after throwing up. As soon as I stepped out of the restroom, Kevin blocked my path. What's with the I'm so different and delicate act? Aren't you just trying to get Mr. Hayes' attention because you're a pretty omega? There was something wrong with this guy. He used his alpha status to look down on omegas like me. When I got promoted a while back, he spread rumors everywhere that I'd slept my way to the top. I frowned and said coldly, when you have a dark heart, you see darkness in everything. Kevin sneered. Am I wrong? You've been passed around. Haven't you? Slap. The sound echoed in the hallway. I had slapped him. I pointed at him, my voice vicious. You say one more word, and you'll regret it. He clutched his face, then suddenly lunged forward and grabbed my neck. I struggled hard, biting his hand. Enraged, he kicked me. I instinctively shielded my stomach. As I fell backward, I landed in a warm, strong embrace. Aiden caught me securely. I smelled that familiar mint scent. The feeling of nausea immediately subsided. Aiden's voice was cold. Kevin, what do you think you're doing? Kevin blurted out, Mr. Hayes, he's trying to seduce you. You're lying. I retorted. Aiden kicked Kevin hard. If I ever see you bullying a colleague again, you're fired on the spot. Kevin's face was ashen. He nodded repeatedly. Aiden's arm stayed around my waist all the way back to the private dining room. I shifted a couple of steps to the side, breaking free from his hold. Are you okay? Aiden asked. I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. That kick had landed on my thigh. If it had been any higher, the consequences would have been unthinkable. After the party, I was on the curb trying to hail a ride. I waited for 10 minutes, stuck in a queue for a driver. A black Maybach pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Aiden's face. I'll take you home. I refused. No, thank you, Mr. Hayes. My car is almost here. Aiden was unmoved. A lot of our colleagues are driving by. What do you think they'll say if they see this? The last thing I wanted was to be the subject of office gossip with him, so I got in the car. The car was warm, filled with Aiden's unique pheromone scent. Was this a side effect of pregnancy hormones? Whenever I smelled Aiden's pheromones, I felt so much better. I drifted off during the ride. When I opened my eyes again, I was leaning against Aiden's shoulder. I had actually fallen asleep. I quickly sat up straight and mumbled, "Sorry." Aiden's deep eyes met mine. "You don't have to be so formal." Just before I got out of the car, Aiden stopped me. "Felix, if you really are trying to seduce me, I wouldn't mind." "I mind." That night, before Aiden could finish, I cut him off. "Thank you for the ride, Mr. Hayes. Good night. Never date a coworker, and definitely not your boss." I practically fled. Aside from the morning sickness, life went on as usual. Every day, I'd talk to my belly, feeling the little life grow. The only new development was my daily trips to Aiden's office. Sometimes I needed his signature, other times he wanted to discuss a proposal. Working with him, I realized he was a capable and good leader. But just the faint trace of his pheromones wasn't enough to soothe me anymore. It was getting difficult. If only I could steal one of his shirts. I was lost in this thought at my desk when an email from Aiden popped up, telling me to go on a business trip with him. It was to negotiate a partnership for a project I'd been leading. I couldn't refuse. When we arrived, the head of the other company frowned as soon as he saw I was an Omega. "Oh, an Omega?" he said, his disappointment obvious. Throughout the conversation, he consistently ignored me. It got worse after I felt sick, went to the restroom, and came back to find Aiden asking with concern if I was okay. The client seemed to peg me as Aiden's trophy Omega. Halfway through the discussion, Aiden suddenly cut him off. Was I not clear in my introduction? He pointed at me. "This is Mr. Cole, our project department manager. He has been in charge of all the preliminary work for this collaboration. If you don't want to negotiate with him, then there's no need for us to continue this conversation." Aiden stood up to leave, and I quickly stood up to follow. The client scrambled to apologize and get us to stay, but Aiden ignored him. In the car, I asked tentatively, "Mr. Hayes, was that really necessary?" He glanced at me and said slowly, "It was necessary. As far as I'm concerned, Alpha, Beta, Omega, there's no difference. I've seen your resume and the projects you've handled. You're brilliant and incredibly competent. Anyone who judges a partner based on their gender isn't worth working with. Just a bunch of old fossils pulling rank." Aiden's words made my heart start to beat irregularly. And that last grumbled curse was actually kind of cute. It was the first time anyone had ever said something like that to me. A warmth spread through my chest. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes." He handed me a bottle of water. "Are you all right? I've noticed you throwing up a lot lately. Are you feeling unwell?" I looked away, uncomfortable. "It's nothing. I just ate something bad." Being in an enclosed space with him, I was already feeling much better. Just as I was about to doze off, Aiden's breathing became ragged. I quickly asked, "Mr. Hayes, what's wrong?" Myra came early. I froze. There were no suppressants in the car. Aiden was in pain, and so was I. A pregnant Omega isn't supposed to go into heat, but his pheromones were affecting me so strongly that I was starting to react too. Mint and orange scents collided in the car. Thank God the driver was a beta. Aiden's dangerous gaze fixed on me. I instinctively covered my glands. He gave a small, pained smile. "I'm not going to do anything to you. It's just, your scent is so good. Can you give me a little more?" Without thinking, I released my pheromones. Aiden closed his eyes. The driver returned with the suppressants. After the injection, Aiden seemed much better. But he was also completely drained. On the way back to his room, his face was flushed. He wouldn't let anyone but me help him. When we got to his door, I tried to leave. He pulled me into the room. Then he forcibly took off my jacket and hugged it tightly. I stared, stunned. Was this nesting behavior? I didn't leave right away. I touched his forehead. It was burning up. He had a fever. I ended up taking care of Aiden through his entire rut. I had my own selfish reasons, of course. Being with him, I didn't feel nauseous at all. During this time, he was delirious and would often ramble. "Felix, do you have a boyfriend?" I shook my head. A satisfied smile spread across his face, and he started talking nonsense. "Don't get me wrong, this isn't workplace harassment. It's after hours. I'm just concerned." I waited for him to finish. Instead, he fell asleep. While he was sleeping soundly, I swiped one of his pajama tops. I'd seen he brought several sets. He probably wouldn't notice one missing, right? Aiden didn't notice a missing pajama top. Once his rut was over, he was back to normal. He found another local partner, and the negotiations went smoothly. Back at the office, Fiona started gossiping with me. "You and Mr. Hayes were on that business trip for so long. Alone Alpha and Omega. Did any sparks fly?" I replied without batting an eye, "What are you thinking? We were there to work." Fiona said, "I think you and Mr. Hayes would be a great match. You look so good together. And the way he put Kevin in his place that day was so hot. That jerk Kevin got demoted, ha ha ha." As we were chatting, both my phone and Fiona's started vibrating like crazy. The company group chat was blowing up. Someone had shared a link to a post. Everyone else was spamming crying emojis. Fiona saw it and said to me regretfully, "My ship has sunk." I clicked the link. It was an interview with a celebrity. He was claiming that Aiden Hayes was his fiancée. I instinctively glanced toward Aiden's office. His blinds weren't drawn, and our eyes met. I quickly looked away. So he was engaged. I couldn't quite describe the feeling in my chest. I looked down at my stomach. I'd have to keep this secret buried deep. The day of my regular checkup arrived. My childhood friend, Leo, went with me. He was the only one who knew my secret. The doctor said the baby was developing well. As Leo and I were leaving the doctor's office, he was excitedly chattering about the baby's gender. Then we ran straight into Aiden. Standing beside him was a sweet-looking Omega. It wasn't the celebrity from the interview, but still. I quickly hid the ultrasound picture in my hand. Aiden looked just as surprised to see me. "Felix, are you not feeling well?" he asked, a hint of worry in his voice. I made up an excuse. "No, I'm just here for a checkup." He seemed to relax a little, then volunteered, "I'm here visiting a relative." He glanced at the Omega next to him. "This is my cousin." The cousin gave Aiden a thoroughly confused look. Just as we were about to say goodbye, the doctor's office door opened. He hurried over and handed me a bag. "Hey, you forgot your medication. I forgot to mention earlier, don't overdo it during your pregnancy." The doctor then rushed back to his office. Aiden stared at me, his face a picture of devastation. His eyes darted back and forth between me and Leo. "Pregnancy? Felix, you're pregnant? You're married?" To avoid a whole series of future complications, I admitted it on the spot. "Yes." He looked at me in disbelief. "But I asked you the other day, and you said you didn't have a boyfriend." I said, struggling for words, "No boyfriend, but I have a husband. Mr. Hayes, we should get going." I said it all in a rush and dragged Leo away. Leo grabbed my arm. "That was the baby's father, wasn't it? And I'm pretty sure he's into you." I quickly denied it. "Don't be ridiculous. He has a fiancée. We're from two completely different worlds." Aiden didn't show up for the Monday meeting. His assistant said he'd called in sick. My mind was elsewhere all day. Aiden was sick? He didn't come back to work until Thursday. He looked grim, radiating a low-pressure system vibe. Fiona whispered, "Who pissed off Mr. Hayes?" I'm almost afraid to breathe. Another colleague chimed in, maybe he had a fight with his Omega? I subconsciously looked toward Aiden's office, but the blinds were down. Couldn't see a thing. When I went into his office to report on work, he seemed to be staring at my stomach, lost in thought. Me? After work, Aiden stopped me in the underground parking garage. His brow was furrowed, and he seemed to be struggling for words. "Felix, are you really married?" "Yes, Mr. Hayes," he said with great difficulty. Then that night with me, I cut him off. "That was an accident. I was drunk. Don't worry, the baby isn't yours." Why did Aiden's expression suddenly look even worse? Aiden asked again, "Are you and your partner happy together?" I went with it. "We've known each other since we were kids. We're very happy. So, about that night, I'd appreciate it if you'd keep it a secret, Mr. Hayes." The lies were getting more and more ridiculous. My toes were curling in my shoes. One lie really does lead to 1,000 more. "But your beta isn't faithful. He's been on dates with another beta recently. Even though you have a child together, I didn't want you to be kept in the dark." My head was spinning. I think Leo did mention that his family had set him up with a beta recently. How could my luck be this bad that Aiden would find out? I just wanted to end the conversation. "Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayes. I understand." As I turned to get in my car, Aiden called out again. "Felix, omegas and betas aren't a good match. I hope you won't sacrifice your own happiness just because you have a child. You're a great person. You deserve better. Let him believe whatever he wants. As long as he doesn't know the baby is his, I'm fine." The client from our last business trip invited us to tour their factory. As I was packing, I got a message from Aiden. "I'm sending someone else from your department on the trip. You're pregnant, you need to rest." He was actually a pretty decent boss. I lay in bed, cuddling the stolen pajama top. The fabric was starting to get worn out from how much I clutched it. Aiden's scent was fading. My whole body felt sluggish and weak. On my way to a routine checkup, I suddenly felt dizzy. I collapsed right at the hospital entrance. Through the haze, I felt someone pick me up. A wave of mint-scented pheromones washed over me. Like a parched traveler finding an oasis, I instinctively nuzzled the alpha's scent glands, taking a deep breath. The person holding me froze. "Don't move." I rubbed against his glands again and heard Aiden hiss in a sharp breath. The next time I woke up, I was in a hospital room. The doctor was talking to an alpha. When an omega is pregnant, they develop a powerful dependency. They need their alpha's companionship and pheromones for comfort. "What kind of alpha are you?" I was about to explain when I saw Aiden respectfully telling the doctor, "I understand, doctor. I'll be more attentive from now on." "Thank you." After the doctor left, it was just me and Aiden in the room. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. You've helped me out again." He pulled up a chair, his expression dark. "We're not at the office. You can call me by my name." I didn't know what to say, so I just gave a non-committal nod. Suddenly, his phone vibrated several times. His face turned chillingly cold. He suddenly looked up, held his phone out for me to see, and said with anguish, "Felix, while you were at the hospital for your checkup, your beta was at a musical holding hands with someone else. Are you still not going to divorce that scumbag? It's a good thing I came to visit my relative today and ran into you. Leo was supposed to come with me today, but the beta he'd been seeing had asked him out. I didn't want to get in the way of his happiness, so I insisted on going alone. I never expected. I thought for a moment, then asked abruptly, "Did you have him followed?"
Edenes imposi n'aura vanished.
Took him a few seconds to reply. "I'm your boss. I didn't want to see you get hurt." Just as I was racking my brain for what to say, both of our phones rang. Aiden went to the window to take his call. I answered Leo's. He sounded frustrated. "Felix, a bunch of huge alphas just showed up out of nowhere and tried to jump me. They told my date I was married and a total dirtbag. To avoid getting beat up and to keep him from getting the wrong idea, I blurted out that I wasn't married. Bro, I'm so sorry. Those guys were sent by the baby's father, right?" I calmed Leo down and hung up, feeling completely defeated. Aiden finished his call and strode over from the window, his eyes gleaming. "Felix, the baby in your belly is mine, isn't it?" Aiden's expression shifted from cloudy to bright. He stared at me and said with conviction, "If the baby wasn't mine, you wouldn't have needed to lie to me at the hospital that day." He stammered slightly. These past few days, I've been trying so hard to remember that night, and I think, for you, just like for me, it was the first time. My ears started to burn. I was out of excuses. Figuring what the hell, I threw caution to the wind. Mr. Hayes, you're right. The baby is yours. I'm planning on having him, but don't worry, this has nothing to do with you. I can sign a legal document promising that the child will never be a part of your life. Aiden's expression soured again. What are you talking about? Don't worry, I won't force you to get an abortion, and I won't fight you for custody. My voice got smaller and smaller. Mr. Hayes, you have a fiancé. I know this is an unreasonable request, but the doctor said it's a miracle I could even get pregnant. That's why I really want to keep this baby. I want to have a family of my own. After I finished, I looked at Aiden nervously. He looked completely baffled. What fiancé? Who said I have a fiancé? Now it was my turn to be surprised. Aiden denied it again. My family did try to set me up with someone for an arranged marriage, but I don't like him. That's why I ran off on the very day we first met. I'm single. I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, that's great. That way, the baby won't cause any unnecessary problems for your future marriage. He sighed, gave me a deep, unreadable look, and finally muttered to himself, Fine, we'll take it slow. After my 4-drip was done, Aiden insisted on driving me home and walking me upstairs. You're too weak. The doctor said if this continues, the baby could be in danger. I'll walk you up and leave some of my pheromones in your apartment. Aiden had a point. I let him come upstairs with me. Opening the door, I felt a little self-conscious. My place is pretty small. Aiden looked around with interest. It's cozy. The whole place smells like oranges. I love it. His gaze fell on the pajama top on the sofa. I wanted to run over and hide it, but it was too late. He smirked. So this is where my missing pajama top ended up. The words were barely out of his mouth when he started releasing his pheromones. My legs instantly went weak, and I sank onto the sofa. He stayed late, leaving his jacket and tie behind when he left. He was actually a really nice guy. Even though things had taken an unexpected turn, Aiden's reaction wasn't as dramatic as I'd feared. I'll just take it one step at a time. This was a good thing. For some reason, though, I felt a strange sense of disappointment. On Monday, when I got to my desk, there was a paper bag on my chair. I opened it. Inside were pajamas, a tie, and an undershirt, all from luxury brands. I knew instantly that Aiden had put them there. They were saturated with his pheromones. Feeling like a thief, I quickly put everything away. An undershirt, though? Wasn't that a little too personal? Fiona brought me a coffee and chatted. Mr. Hayes must have made up with his omega. I asked, what makes you say that? He's had a spring in his step lately, a total change from the gloomy mood he was in before. During the weekly meeting, his tone was gentle, and he didn't chew anyone out. I thought back, and she was right, but he'd said he didn't have a fiancé, that he was single. I had no idea why he was so happy. Lately, I'd been receiving all sorts of packages at home. A lumbar support belt, bird's nest soup and sea cucumber, and various probiotics. All from Aiden. Alarm bells went off in my head. Didn't he say he wouldn't fight me for the baby? A message from him put my mind at ease. Don't overthink it. These are things you need right now. From now on, we'll have dinner together after work every day. The doctor said you need to spend time with an alpha daily for the baby to develop properly. I'll go with you to your next checkup. A warmth spread through me, like something frozen was starting to melt. After that, Aiden took me out to dinner every day after work. The food was delicious and nutritious, but the restaurants were expensive. I couldn't let him keep paying. When I tried to grab the check, he stopped me. Don't worry about it. I own this restaurant. As my pregnancy progressed, my body started changing in new ways. When I woke up, the front of my pajama shirt was soaked. It was very uncomfortable. I looked online for solutions. I came across one suggestion. Have the alpha drink it. My face flushed, and my heart pounded as I quickly closed the tab. Aiden's face popped into my head unbidden. I shook my head to clear the thought. At work, I was worrying about it when a sudden commotion broke out. A beautiful Omega had arrived at the company, holding a bouquet of roses. He walked straight to Aiden's office. Isn't that the famous actor? Wow, he's even more handsome in person. No wonder Mr. Hayes has been so cheerful lately. Are those wedding bells I hear? Hadn't Aiden said he didn't have a fiancé? I stared at Aiden's office. The blinds, which had been open every day recently, were now closed. The Omega went inside and didn't come out for a long time. I don't know what came over me, but a wave of sourness washed through my heart. My chest was wet again, and it was deeply uncomfortable. The doctor had said pregnant Omegas can be emotionally unstable. This was definitely unstable. Staring at my computer screen, I suddenly started crying. I took the afternoon off and went home. I was dozing on the sofa when a frantic knocking came from the door. It was Aiden. He looked me up and down in a panic. Fiona said you took leave. Are you not feeling well? I'm fine. Mr. Hayes, what are you doing here? I wasn't fine at all. The fresh pajamas I'd put on were already soaked through. I came to see you, of course. He thought for a moment, then added, by the way, the Omega who came to see me at the office today. I glanced at my stomach and promised, don't worry, I'll definitely keep your secret. Aiden's expression instantly turned grim. He looked at me with a sense of helplessness. Felix, besides keeping my secrets, do you have any other thoughts? I did, but I had to keep them buried deep in my heart. I spent the afternoon thinking. I had fallen for Aiden. I was jealous of that Omega. That's why I had cried. I shook my head. No. Aiden sighed and squeezed through the door. I guess I haven't been obvious enough. Felix, I like you. You said you wanted a family. How about adding me to yours? Took a long moment for my heart to start beating again. Aiden said he liked me? He'd been taking me to dinner, buying me gifts, and being so good to me because he liked me? Aiden said earnestly, that day at the hospital, when I thought you were married and had a child, my world fell apart. I holed up at home drinking, and all I could see was your face. Later, when I found out your beta was cheating, I was so happy. I thought I had another chance. And when I found out the baby in your belly was mine, I was too excited to sleep. I wanted to take things slow with you, to let you feel my intentions. But what you just said felt like my heart was being squeezed. I don't want to go slow anymore. I want you to know right now. The Omega who came looking for me today was indeed the person my family tried to set me up with. I had already rejected him clearly, and I didn't accept his flowers. I started crying again, pathetically. I like you too. Aiden's hand, which had been wiping my tears, froze. He looked at me, overjoyed. I cautiously raised my arms and hugged him. He hugged me back tightly. After a moment, Aiden let go and kissed my forehead. He glanced at my chest. Is it hot in here? Why is your shirt all wet? Why does it smell like milk? Aiden's voice trailed off as he stared at me, realization dawning. I wanted to dig a hole and crawl into it. Aiden sat on the sofa and pulled me onto his lap. He kissed my lips, again and again. It wasn't our first kiss, but I was nervous and clumsy. Felix, I'm your alpha now, right? I looked into his eyes and whispered, Aiden asked again, are you uncomfortable right now? I gave a tiny nod. So, can I help you with that? Later, my eyes were closed, my hands resting on Aiden's head. I refused to think about it the next day. Just remembering Aiden's murmur of delicious scent shivers down my spine. Aiden and I started dating. The baby in my belly now had a complete family. It was all so wonderful it felt like a dream. As my belly grew more obvious, Fiona was the first to notice I was pregnant. Her eyes went wide, and she covered her mouth. Holy crap, holy crap. Felix, whose baby is it? Which bastard alpha? I whispered back, I can't tell you right now. It took her the entire morning to process the news. In the afternoon, Aiden called me into his office under the pretense of work. The moment I walked in, he pulled me onto his desk, leaned in close to my ear, and whispered, is it happening again? When I came out of Aiden's office, my whole body felt weak. I had just sat down at my desk when I saw that Kevin had posted a photo of me at a hospital checkup in the company group chat. I was wearing a form-fitting shirt that day, and my baby bump was obvious. My colleagues started whispering. A chill ran through me. Ever since he'd been demoted, he'd mostly left me alone. Fiona shot back in the chat, "Kevin, are you insane? Delete that right now." Kevin stood up from his desk and looked at me with malice. "See? I told you." Using his Omega status to sleep his way to the top. Now he's pregnant with God knows whose bastard. I stood up and retorted, "My child is not a bastard. Then where did a single Omega like you get a baby?" Just as I was about to speak, Aiden appeared behind Kevin. His voice was firm and clear. "Mine. I am Felix's alpha. The child in his belly is mine." "What, are you saying my child is a bastard?" The office fell completely silent. Kevin's face turned white as a sheet. "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry. I didn't know." Aiden said coldly, "You're fired." The office quickly returned to normal. My phone was bombarded with messages from Fiona. Am I dreaming? Not only did my ship not sink, they have a baby. "Felix, you go. Making big moves in silence. You deserve an alpha like Mr. Hayes." As my due date approached, Aiden bought a new villa. He decorated a luxurious and beautiful nursery for our unborn baby. I moved into the villa with him. I teased him, "I guess my status comes with the baby." Aiden anxiously retorted, "You mean the baby's status comes with you?" I shot back, "So you don't love the baby?" He stammered, "I do. I just wanted to tell you, I'm not with you and I don't want to marry you just because of the baby. It's because I love you." I hugged him. "I love you too." After taking maternity leave from the company, I started resting at home. One day, two elders suddenly showed up at the villa. They looked like Aiden's grandfather and father. They pointed at Aiden, heartbroken. "You rebellious son. Why didn't you marry that boy, Ian?" Aiden said, "I already have an Omega. I'm going to marry him." As I came down from the second floor, Aiden rushed over to support me. His father looked me over and roared, "Aiden, have you lost your mind? You're going to marry an Omega who already has a child? Are you trying to give our whole family a heart attack?" Aiden gave them a bewildered look. "The child is mine." His grandfather, leaning on his cane, shot up excitedly. "What? I'm going to be a great-grandfather. The Hayes family has an heir." Aiden's father immediately pulled out his phone to make a call, shouting excitedly into it, "You're going to be a grandmother." Aiden's grandfather walked over to me, his voice kind. "Hello there, my dear boy. We didn't scare you just now, did we? Don't take it to heart. We were mainly yelling at that rebellious son of ours," he said, glaring at Aiden. The scene was pure chaos. Aiden looked at me, and we shared a helpless smile. Over the next few days, I was showered with gifts from Aiden's family. An airplane, a yacht, various properties and cars. I was both terrified and incredibly flattered. This really was a case of my status coming with the baby. 2 months later, our child was born. A little alpha, absolutely adorable. At our wedding, the officiant asked Aiden when he first fell in love with me. Aiden thought for a moment, looked at me with deep affection, and said, "It was probably love at first sight. From the first moment I saw him, I couldn't help but be drawn to him. It was the same the second and third time I saw him. It's the same now, and it always will be." I was already crying too hard to speak. Turned out someone would choose me so resolutely and love me without reservation. I had a family of my own.